Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Geekcentric podcast is proud to bring to you our spoiler-free review for A24's The Iron Claw. Let's get ready to crumble into severe depression.
Oh no!
What's up, geeks? This is the Geekcentric podcast, and today we step between the ropes of the cinematic squared circle to discuss the thoughts on a film that absolutely body-slammed our emotions. My name is Kev, and I'll be your ringside announcer as we give the play-by-play for the latest movie from A24. A huge thanks to A24 and Elevation Pictures for inviting us to attend the Canadian premiere for The Iron Claw. Now, no wrestling promotion is anything without its world champion, so let me introduce ours, my co-host for the show.
Coming to the ring, he hails from parts unknown. He's the everlasting podcasting, Honda driving, economy class flying, Lego wielding, Lorcana dealing son of a gun. Woo! It's Nasty Nate.
What's going on, champ?
Oh, hey there, brother. He's not in this movie, right? No.
Hogan's not, but that's good. I appreciate it. You got a wrestler, so it works.
And it's a brother, I think people look at us and we've got a similar build and facial hair. We could be brothers. Look at my beautiful brother. Yay!
And it's a movie all about brotherhood. I think that is the most perfect wrestling analogy or quote you could have brought out.
It's the only one I know.
Well, there we go. Now, I mentioned the film is from A24. And it's amazing that for a studio known for horror films such as Hereditary and The Witch and so many more beloved, just like all-time horror films, this might be their most terrifying movie yet. And that might be because it's based on a true story.
Yeah. It's very real. I don't think I was prepared for how real it was going to be, Kevin, and I don't think anyone in our audience was prepared for all the gasps and shocks. And you were like I would notice moments during the movie where you would sort of like lean over a little bit and like, oh, just wait.
There's one scene in particular, and I knew it was coming, and I don't think most people in the audience did, and it just hits. It hits so hard. And I think it was a combination. It was either gasps or for the second half of the movie, it was sobs. There was sniffling. I don't know if everyone just had a cold or, this movie hits hard.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I can't wait to dive into this one from the top turnbuckle, but first, a little about the film itself. From A24 and Elevation Pictures, this is the true story of the inseparable Von Erich brothers who made history in the intensely competitive world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. Through tragedy and triumph, under the shadow of their domineering father and coach, the brothers seek larger-than-life immortality on the biggest stage in sports. Written and directed by Sean Durkin, the film stars Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, Maura Tierney, Stanley Simmons, Holt McElhaney, and Lily James. The film elbow drops its way into theaters on December 22nd, 2023. Now, as regular listeners of the program might know, I've been a pretty big wrestling fan most of my life. I don't watch regularly anymore, but I've attended dozens of live events around North America, including 13 WrestleMania events. These days, I've primarily focused on being, on behind-the-scenes stuff and documentaries, one of which being Dark Side of the Ring. And there's an episode that focuses on the Von Erich family. But even before that, I was familiar with the basics of the family story, as most avid fans of the history of wrestling are. But for yourself, Nate, outside of the Peanut Butter Falcon, which we were discussing after the movie last night, what is your familiarity with the wrestling world and the Von Erich family in particular prior to seeing the film?
For me, it's we talked about this a little bit. Brother, I know that guy, and I knew of the blonde haired guy in this movie with the
Ric
boas.
Flair,
Ric
16-time world champion Ric Flair.
Yeah, the blonde-haired guy. So I knew of Ric Flair from I watched a show called The Golden Touch, which is about an auction house, and he was featured in an episode there. But I mean, for the most part, yeah, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, John Cena, You Can't See Me, like that sort of stuff, like the stuff that I think the whole world knows is mostly what I was knowing about. I knew going into this movie that there was going to be some sadness for sure. I was told, get ready to cry, get ready to tear up. It's not a happy, sort of feel good sports movie film.
You've gotten into those feel good sports movies lately.
I love them.
We saw one this year. Like you love those, but this is not that.
No. I think I basically kind of looked at like something like the Peanut Butter Falcon, which stars a character who really is in love with the idea of becoming a wrestler, as almost it's still there's still very sad stuff that happens in that movie, but that movie will soothe your wrestling heart after watching this one. I think it might make for a good sort of follow-up to sort of have something that does sort of feel a little bit better leaving the film.
I think everybody's going to need a feel-good something or other after watching this movie. But the timekeeper has rung the bell, so let's lock up and get started. Nate, what were your initial thoughts on the movie? What were some things that stood out for you? What really worked?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we normally go into these reviews with what worked, what didn't work. I don't think I've got really too much that didn't work. If I can even, I would have to really stretch myself to find something for this film. What an incredible and tragic story we watched, Kevin. I mean, the movie draws you in. It gets your heart pumping as you watch the rise and the fall of the Von Erichs, the Von Erich family and these brothers. And I was so happy to get to watch the movie with you specifically, Kevin, just knowing that you are such a huge fan of wrestling. To me, it felt like, and for people that listen to the podcast, if they know Darcy, it felt like watching a deep cut Marvel story that I don't really know too much about with Darcy, but it's you and it's wrestling and it's wrestling history. I think for me, though, the biggest thing, I mean, so much of this movie will stay with me, but I have to acknowledge, the first thing I have to acknowledge is the cinematography in this movie. I was pretty blown away with I guess it's Matthias Erdely. If I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I apologize. But they did such an incredible job with how they captured the moments in this movie, and I'm sure a lot of that came from the directing. But it's the way the camera either moves or is placed in a certain moment in the film is done so well. Cinematography is used to tell a story, but here it's also used to reveal certain elements about the story that take you from one place to another in shocking ways. And there's a scene that I think you brought up just a few moments ago where, and I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but let's just say a character comes into frame, and for maybe 1 second you think, okay, everything's okay. Everything's, it's not okay, but it's okay. And then they pass by something in front of the frame, and it's revealed that things are just much worse than they seem. And that moment and the way that the audience reacted is something that I think will stick in my brain as much as some of the other shocking moments that I've seen in A24 films.
Absolutely. The scariest thing is often the realest thing, and this film focuses so much on that. And that's one thing that I really loved about the film. I mean, you can look at some of the narrative, and in fact, as I was putting together the show, I went and rewatched that episode of Dark Side of the Ring, focusing on the Von Erichs, to see how close the movie got the story to the real life incidents. And they do jumble some things around. They gloss over some facts. They Hollywoodize some things for the sake of the movie, and that rarely bothers me. When something is based on a true story. I understand the point of elaborating and everything, and that couldn't be more true here. I don't think that they did any injustice to any of the real life characters in doing so, and they did get the most important facts dead right. And we can talk so much about the cinematography and the music and the acting, and I know we will. But for me, the one thing that I really appreciated was how realistic they treated how wrestling works. I think
Mm.
the behind the scenes stuff of how wrestling works, not just from what you're seeing on the TV or as a fan in the ring, but the mechanics of how people work together as a team behind the scenes. And you'll have two guys who are about to go out in the ring and beat the crap out of each other, or at least that's what they want to make us think. But they're
Yeah.
actually working together because they both benefit when they both look good and they both keep each other safe. And the film doesn't focus too much on that, but the little tidbits that you get. There's a great moment with a wrestler who also came to a tragic end, Bruiser Brody, and he's got a great interaction with the Von Erichs, and it's so sweet and lovely. And then he goes out there and he's the bad guy, and it was just so cool to see wrestling represented that way, and properly. I think that was really appreciated.
Well, and I think the movie, to me, and I was telling you this as we were leaving the theater, it almost felt like two halves of a bigger story, in that, like, the first half of the movie, you're going to go in, it gets your heart pumping, it feels like a feel good sports movie, very much so, and then it slowly starts to become more and more upsetting and distressing and sad. But I will say, for that first half, the amount of humor in the movie was really surprising. I think, again, going into this and being told, like, you're going to cry, it's going to be upsetting, it's not a happy story, but to still laugh at so many amazing moments between these brothers. And I think the other aspect to it, too, that I really appreciated, being someone who's not, hasn't really ever followed the wrestling world and looked at it from the outside perspective, it was nice to sort of see, you could tell that there's that authenticity that you're talking about, Kevin, in that they're not just showing wrestling so cool. They're also showing, like, the silly, stupid laughing at wrestling moments as well. And they're not afraid to sort of, like, say, like, yeah, there's some really silly, stupid things about wrestling as well. And they embrace it and they have fun with it. And there's a really great moment with Zac Efron where he's trying to give a, what would you call that, Kevin? A hype up speech, or what did you say?
Yeah, he's cutting a promo. Yeah,
he's cutting a promo, right? And he's just not doing great at it. So again, it's just really fun to sort of see, as you said, the behind the scenes aspect of it, and to see sort of the elements of family in the world of wrestling that even go beyond just this family that we're focused on.
Absolutely. And I think the humor is so important early in the film because they do such a terrific job of showing just how close and just how much these brothers love each other. And that's so important for the second half of the film to resonate with the audience, which I think it does really, really well. And speaking of humor, I think all of the Von Erich boys get a chance to show some personality and some humor. And I've been pumping up my boy Zac Efron on this channel for a couple years, but we've really only seen him either play, the good-looking youngster, and he's got some singing chops, so we've known that from High School Musical. And I think if you're a fan of Neighbors or Neighbors 2, you got to see the humor, and he brings that out here. But man, does he bring some acting chops to this film. Kevin Von Erich wasn't the biggest of the Von Erich brothers. He didn't reach the most fame, but this story really does focus on him. And so to get that kind of performance from Zac Efron as sort of the anchor that carries this movie was so impressive. I think he's going to open up a lot of eyes, change a lot of perspectives on what he can bring to a role.
Yeah, 100%. And it's fantastic to see that at this point in his career that he's able to maybe make that shift, make that pivot. Because I was telling you, Kevin, I've never really watched a lot of Zac Efron. Like I was telling you, like High School Musical, and then 17 again was like the last thing that I had watched. And yeah, dude, this guy can act. And it's also incredible to see the dedication of the look as well. Like he is massive in this film, like physically so huge, to a point where there's a scene where he walks in. I didn't think he was going to fit through the door that he was walking through, and he's in these like cut off shorts and cut off shirt.
He barely fits in those shorts. Yeah,
dude, he looks incredible. He was giving me Lou Ferrigno in a few moments,
especially with the haircut. Yes, huge. I couldn't help but think Lou Ferrigno, which is like, damn, you're talking about the Hulk now.
Yeah.
So Now we're talking about superheroes. Can we consider? Would you put him on your short list for Wolverine? Would you?
He's
Would you
there.
move him on there now?
100%. Oh, 100%.
Right? He could be the comedy. He could bring the physicality
and the seriousness as well. Again, I think we there's a sense of tragedy to the character of Wolverine that I think he could bring as well. That's portrayed in this movie. I also want to shout out just the entire cast. Like, we're just going to gush about this entire cast, but I mean, Harris Dickinson as David Von Erich is unreal. To see the way that he portrays this man who you can visibly see learning in every frame that he's in. Like, you see in his face, the way he's acting, that he's picking up on all these little elements of what he needs to do to impress the people around him, to impress his father most of all. I think was you can see it wholeheartedly in his performance. And Holt McCallany as Fritz Von Erich, just being this stone wall man that, honestly, like, because going into this movie, Kevin, I'm like, don't spoil too much, but is the dad a big asshole? Like, is he a dick? And you were like, he was a horrible man. But to go into it and see the change, right? Because we do get to see a little bit of a small moment where we get to see him with the boys at a younger age. And I was like, this guy's so charming. Like, I love this guy. Like, he was so delightful. And then so to see him go from that and to kind of progress this way to just become this literally brick wall of a human that just is all about the success and the getting his sons to just be the best, no tears. And it's just, holy, so good.
Yeah, watching Kevin Von Erich talk in the Dark Side of the Ring documentary about his father, and he says that it is these moments of tragedy that happened throughout his life where they noticed a change in him, and it was one after the other that compiled and just changed him. And I think this movie does such justice to at least letting you understand where this character is coming from and why he behaves the way he does. I think the very same can be said with Maura Tierney as the mother, Doris Von Erich. Maybe one of the hardest lives of a mother ever when you really think about it. And
I would imagine so.
To see her trying to deal with everything that's going on, but also trying to keep the bits of her family together. It's just so, it's just such a daunting thought and just such a powerful idea of what she had to go through. And she brings this sort of stoicism to that role that I really, really respected.
Well, I mean, speaking of a certain sense of stoicism, maybe a quieter sense with Jeremy Allen White, who plays Carrie, and he's not in this movie as much as I think we would have wanted, and that was something you had mentioned too, Kevin. He's quieter in this film, but I also think that when the movie showcases his pain, you can see that he's doing everything possible to hide it. So I think the sort of almost the lack of him in this movie speaks volumes about the way that this man lived his life, in that he was just so reserved and just saying, well, if I just keep my head down and I keep pushing and I don't necessarily, make people notice me too much, I can get by and I can get through some of the things that happens to him. And it's incredible to see, again, just Jeremy Allen White again in The Bear. I think he's kind of a similar character in that sense, that he is very quiet. He goes through loss. There's such a sense of brotherhood in that movie. So I think he was perfect for this role.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to say, okay, we've got Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White, who's, going into it, you'd say, who's the lead star here? And you would assume it would be Jeremy, especially because of the accolades he's received for his work in both Shameless and more specifically The Bear.
Mm-hmm.
And even watching the documentary again, when you look at the physiques of Kevin versus Carrie, like Zach had the body of Carrie, and Jeremy actually looks a lot like Kevin. And, you could have almost switched them. I'm glad they didn't, because Zach is so great. I have a theory. I'm wondering if, shooting The Bear perhaps kept Jeremy from being in the movie as much as maybe they would have liked if they wanted to
Interesting.
include him more in the story. But I mean, we did talk about how the narrative is so incredible, and their decision to focus on Kevin was the right call because everything is sort of seen through his eyes, and we experience everything through his lens and perception of the world around him.
And seeing characters that try to pull him out of his world. I want to shout out Lily James as Pam. Was fantastic, instantly charming. Like the moment that I think the audience will falls in love with her before before Kevin necessarily does, and it's such a beautiful character in that. And I don't know if she's a real person, but I just mean in that she is very much similar to Doris in that she has to grin and bear through all of this stuff. But you can see her also trying to push past and almost kind of get Kevin out of that comfort zone and sort of just, not necessarily have to. She embraces him. She loves his family. But at the same time, you can tell that she's struggling and fighting to sort of get him out of what he believes is his this curse that the Von Erichs believed that they had on their family.
Absolutely. And we were talking a lot about the main players here. I think there's some really small character work that goes so far into creating this world. I want to shout out Michael Harney. I know him from Orange is the New Black.
Oh yeah,
and he plays sort of the ring announcer, the play-by-play, the sort of voice of WCCW wrestling. And while I never watched, this is before my time as a human being on Earth and B, a wrestling fan, so I never watched specifically World Class Championship Wrestling. He played that kind of character to perfection of what I have them envisioned in my mind, and from old clips that I've watched, he sounded just so perfect in that role, and so I just thought that was really cool. And then there's some really fun cameos from actual wrestlers throughout the movie playing historical wrestlers. You got Chavo Guerrero Jr., who plays the Sheik, MJF, who's currently the world champion in AEW wrestling. He has a role in it. But a non-wrestler, I think, stole the show in terms of representing these true historical wrestling figures. And that goes to Kevin Anton, who played Harley Race.
Yeah.
And he looked just like Harley Race. I honestly thought when he was cutting a promo when we first get introduced to him that it was stock footage. That is how spot on he was. So it was incredible. And I would say if I was going to nitpick anything, it was the casting for Ric Flair that left a little to be desired, in my opinion. But at least they got Harley Race, who's an equally big name in the history of wrestling. They absolutely nailed that one.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing that I was kind of curious about leaving. We were talking about some of the performances, and I'd asked you is Ric Flair was that a good portrayal? Was it not a good portrayal? And you were kind of saying it just didn't quite match up. And now that you mentioned Harley Race, I think that if you're comparing the two, I'm just looking up pictures of Harley Race, and holy crap, that's crazy.
That big old round beer belly. He wasn't the kind of physique that you picture with your Hulk Hogan's and that Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen bring. Harley was a big, tough, beer drinking son of a bitch who was gonna beat you up without the flashy muscles, and this guy just had that an old school dad bod down to a T.
Wow, so good.
Now, so much about wrestling, especially these days, is music. When somebody's entrance music hits, it is so. It's a part of their character. That's what gets the crowd reacting first. When people hear that first note of a song, they know who's coming out. They're on their feet cheering. And there is a moment in this film that nails that feeling.
Dude, there is a needle drop with Tom Sawyer by Rush, and it gets the heart pumping. It's such a fantastic moment in the movie. It's a moment that I think, as shocking as there are moments in this film, that is one of the lighter and happier moments that will again stay with me. And I think it's just such a it's so beautiful, and it's just it's fantastic. It's, again, it emphasizes the love that these brothers have, but also in a way that focuses specifically on wrestling. I also like, just in terms of the vibe and feeling, because of the music and the visuals. I also want to shout out some of these interstitials and scene transitions that they do, that just put you right into that era, right into that time frame of, it's not necessarily a time that I fully grew up watching TV, but getting to see, like, again, the very retro vintage, the way that the transitions would happen, like sliding across, or I don't even know how to describe it.
Like those old CBC sports graphics that you would get, like,
Yes.
coming up on Monday Night Football, the Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay
And the
Packers.
font
and
is so like
Yeah.
lame. It was so good. It just, again, the way that the movie is able to capture a moment in time, or an era, and an entire sport, I think is just, it's huge. And again, to be someone for myself on the outside of that, looking in, it was just, it's fantastic.
I mean, so much of this movie is fantastic. And now, every wrestling match typically needs a heel or a bad guy, and this is generally the part of the show where we'd be that heel or bad guy and start nitpicking things that we didn't like about the movie. But I honestly, as I thought about this film, over the rest of the night and going into today, I am struggling to find a single thing that didn't work for me. How about yourself?
Nothing. I don't have anything. I think that they're again, I think I said to you, there was maybe a single moment or line that may have sort of taken me out. I won't say anything about it because it is near the end of the film. Other than that, though, no. Again, I'd really have to nitpick on it. That is such a small little thing in comparison to just the massive success that this film is.
All right, well, we're getting the signal from the referee that it's time to wrap this match up. So let's get into our finishing sequence. Let's give our final thoughts and scores on the film. Today, we'll be doing that on a scale of 1 to 5 flying drop kicks. Nate, why don't you start us off?
Fantastic. Okay. This movie was exhilarating, thrilling, shocking, and devastating throughout its 2 hour and 12-minute runtime. It's got so much heart, and I was just so surprised again with how much humor there is in the first half of the movie. The love that these brothers have for each other is wholeheartedly on display here, and the contrast between that and the sharp turns of tragedy that's like creep into the movie, into its second half, just make for a movie that, honestly, I don't know if I'll want to watch again anytime soon. But at the same time, it's a movie that will stick with you. It's a story that will stick with you, and it will stick with me for sure. I always love movies and series that can not only entertain me, but also teach me so much at the same time. And with this based on real events, the fact that I now want to watch more stories from the people within this sport, I think speaks pretty highly of how much it was able to captivate me. And I really enjoyed this experience. For as tragic as it is, there's just so much highs, there's so much lows. And this cast, again, is phenomenal. And Zach, just please get some awards. Let's go. Let's get Zach some awards. Let's get Zach in more movies like this. I want to see more performances from him in the dramatic side of things. Again, the way that this movie uses cinematography to reveal elements of the story that hit you, I think, like you said, Kevin, like a slam to the floor of a wrestling ring, it's just such a harrowing experience. So yeah, I'm giving this film a solid 5 out of 5 flying drop kicks.
Yeah, A24 has been taking the cinematic world by storm for years now. And I almost feel like I've missed out on a lot of that just because a lot of their movies are in the horror genre, or they are more dramas, or just the type of movie I don't find myself seeing a lot. So I haven't been able to appreciate a lot of their work. And so when I heard there was a movie coming out about the Von Erich family, I was in from second one. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and then I heard that it was from A24, and it was like, wow, this could be something really special. And it didn't fail to deliver in any regard. It was everything I expected it to be, and so much more. Like you said, the performances here are unbelievable, and they're so integral to bringing audiences in and feeling the pain and the anguish that these characters are going through. And normally I'm like, oh, it's just not my cup of tea. I don't know if I'll ever watch this movie again just because of what it puts you through.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not to say anything negative about the experience that I had watching it. And, I found this really special as a fan of wrestling in that it gives so much love, not just to the specific characters, the Von Erichs, but to the world of wrestling. It does such an amazing job of showing what that's about. And so but it'll be great for fans of wrestling, yes, but I think it's going to open the eyes of so many people, like you said yourself, who don't know much about wrestling. It might open some eyes and create some intrigue into looking at the history of wrestling, because as a sport in general, there are a lot of stories like this that deserve to be told and are worth being told. And so maybe this is just the beginning of that. But even just for this movie itself, I'm so excited for audiences who might be going in for reasons other than loving wrestling or knowing what this story is about, and being completely blown away at what they're seeing on the screen. And I think the audience with us was certainly indicative of that. I think there was a lot of shock, a lot of awe, a lot of people kind of being like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this, and holy moly, what is happening here?
Well, I think what was really funny, sorry, just really quick, but I think Iman Vellani was sitting in front of us at our screening with her friends, and you just see them throughout the movie sinking deeper and deeper into their seats, just like horrified and mortified with, I'm assuming, they were literally cheering when Jeremy Allen White came on the screen, and so I imagine the draw for them was to see Jeremy Allen White and Zac Efron and see these muscly dudes and stuff like that, and so to kind of have that for the first half of the movie and then just get hit so hard by that second half. They were a perfect representation, I think, of the emotions that a lot of people are going to feel.
Even the hype guy before the movie, who was sort of getting the audience ready and introducing
Taylor
the
Patterson.
film.
Shout out to Blockio, yeah.
It was, we're ready to see some oily, shirtless dudes, and afterwards you're like, that was not setting the right tone for what this movie was. And so I think even he was taken aback, by what we saw there. And so I think one of the really nice things about the movie, just wrapping up here, is that it doesn't feel exploitative at all. It doesn't feel like it's using this story for any reason other than to try and tell it as earnestly and honestly as possible. And I think, as tragic as it is, there is still this way that they find a bright light at the end to sort of bring it all together and put a bow on it at the end. And you don't feel as awful leaving the theater as you maybe could have. And I think that's a real testament to the storytellers here. And I think the fact that while some truths are stretched and some facts are moved around a little, it's such a great representation of this family's story, and really a really triumphant return. It's one of my favorite movies that I've seen of the year, and I really hope to see it get, like you said, some recognition come awards season. Even just to be on the ballot, I think, for a wrestling movie will be a real triumph. With that, I am giving this an emphatic 5 out of 5 flying drop kicks.
Now, Kevin, flying drop kicks, that's the one you jump off the rope and then you kick the leg? How does it work?
Oh, well, so I think Kevin uses a crossbody from the top rope. That's his big signature move. But the drop kick is where you jump up and kick the guy with both feet. Flying drop kick.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, and the Von Erichs use that a lot in addition to their signature Iron Claw.
And the Iron Claw also, because I was asking you this as well, we were like, let's talk about it on the podcast. But how does that work? So it's like they're grabbing, it's like pressure to the head. Is that why it hurts so much?
Yeah,
or?
I mean,
okay.
But next time we're together, I'll give you an Iron Claw, and we'll see how long it takes you to go stop. Because I don't think it'll be very long.
That sounds great.
I mean, like you see, apparently all the boys worked on it their whole lives because that was their dad's signature move. He invented it.
Yeah.
And they were all so strong in the hands. Like, you should see them working out with like ropes on their fingers, and they could like take an apple and crush it.
Yeah.
They could like take a beer can full and just explode it into their hands. You even see there's a phone book being practiced on in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Which is just a cool little touch that they do throughout it. So yeah, again, next time we see each other, I'll give you a Christmas Iron Claw.
Oh, I can't wait.
Well, the ref has made the 3 count, and the match is over. That's it for this review of A24 and Elevation Pictures' The Iron Claw, which crushes its way into theaters on December 22nd. If you enjoyed this program, be sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already. Once again, a huge thanks to our friends at A24 and Elevation Pictures for inviting us to the Canadian premiere so we could warn you in advance to bring some tissues. We can't wait to hear your thoughts on this powerhouse of a film. As always, you can write into us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or if that's a bit too much like a submission match and you're more of a high-flying ladder match type, you can hit us up on our socials. Nate, let them know where they can do that.
Yeah, they can reach us on I don't want to call it X, whatever. They can reach us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT for as long as that platform exists. It might get ironclad out of existence, but then another great place to reach us would be on our Instagram at We Are Geekcentric. We also got some great reels there and some TikToks at We Are Geekcentric. So definitely check out those platforms as well. We're planning in 2024. I've told Justin, I said, I want this to be a big year for reels. So if you want to look for maybe a little more short form content from us, we're going to be focusing that right over there.
Well, and speaking of, the holiday season is upon us, and we are still pumping out content faster than Santa's elves with toys for the kiddos. We've had the pleasure of reviewing some terrific movies lately, including The Marvels, The Boy and the Heron, as well as the Netflix films Leave the World Behind and Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. And we also have some incredibly exciting content coming up next week, including interviews with Leah Jeffries, Arian Samhadri, and Walker Scobell from Disney Plus's Percy Jackson and the Olympians, as well as some very special content from the premiere. And we're talking the red carpet world premiere of Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, which our very own J-Law had the pleasure of attending this week in Los Angeles. So be sure to keep an eye on the socials for some really special content coming from there, including an interview that we didn't think was possible. We didn't think was going to happen, and it did. And Justin was very excited to get that done. So I can't wait to see all of the footage from that. And as you said, so much more as we move into 2024, where things are only getting bigger and better here with Geekcentric. And as always, when I'm hosting, I like to give a shout out to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Geekcentric, where we've got all of these interviews, as well as some of our older content with videos paying tribute to some of the things we love, including a very special wrestling video that was a lot of fun to make years ago. So check that one out and everything else. Be sure to review, comment, show us some love, guys. We love to hear the feedback and can't wait to bring you so much more. But until then, thank you so much for tuning in. And as we say,
love ya. I don't know. Is that like an announcer? I don't know. Love
sure. Get home safe and peace. Oh, it sounds like Mommy did the Iron Claw to Robbie upstairs.
Oh my gosh. I was like right on time too. Like
right?